This episode of Buy Black Podcast is brought to you by Haptic Consulting. Haptic Consulting specializes in maximizing the value your organization gets from its training budget by focusing on business needs, eliminating unnecessary training development, and helping you build a culture of engagement from the executive level down. Visit www.hapticconsulting.com to learn how I can help you develop better leaders, happier employees, and a more profitable company culture. Or you can email me at gerald@hapticconsulting.com. That's GERALD@hapticconsulting.com. Now let's get into the show.
One of the saddest parts about this was that there is not one female person that I know that goes out regularly that has not been in some way either sexually harassed or sexually assaulted at a bar or club or leaving a bar or club. And I think one of the biggest reasons for that is because bars and clubs aren't held accountable for the actions of the people that they have inside of bars and clubs, which is why we created this app, because we want people to know the bars and clubs that aren't good to go to because they either have terrible security, their cameras don't work, or they just don't care. So we can weed out the bad bars and clubs, or we can improve them.
Buy Black Podcast, episode 47. Defining social entrepreneurship and attracting venture capital investors with my guest, Outro App co-founder Joshua Bunch. Welcome to Buy Black, the only podcast dedicated to helping you find, connect with, and support Black-owned businesses. We're on a mission to bring consumers and business owners together to ignite the global Black economy. I'm your host, Gerald Jones, and if you're a Black business owner or a socially conscious consumer, you've joined the right community. Ready? Let's get to work. Hey everybody, welcome back to Buy Black, your only podcast dedicated to helping you find and connect with Black-owned businesses. Today, it is episode number 47 that we're going to be bringing to you an interview with a young man named Joshua Bunch. And when we get into this show, you guys are going to be ridiculously excited to hear what Josh has to talk about. His excitement, his energy, his wisdom. Everything that he is sharing today is information that is going to be useful for everybody in the community. Josh reached out to me a couple of weeks ago via Instagram. We connected, talked on the phone, and then got prepared to do this interview. And I'm really excited about the product that he's going to be sharing with us. It's an app that is, it has the potential to change the world for women, for LGBTQ, to people of color. It is an excellent idea. He's one of 4 founding members of this company who created this app. Now, just a heads up, he's the only founder who is Black. All the other founders are not part of the Black community. However, I know you all are going to be crazy excited about this app. At least I am. And I think that anybody who listens is gonna immediately want to go out, download it, and start contributing to it because it is a phenomenal idea. Aside from that, Josh is going to talk to us about how to procure venture capitalist funding. He's going to talk to us about social entrepreneurship. I mean, this man is just a wealth of information, knowledge, and energy. So as I tell you with every other great episode we have, make sure you grab that pen and paper if you're not driving. And if you are driving, just make a mental note to come back, listen to this one again when you have the time to take notes, because this is going to jumpstart your entrepreneurship. I guarantee it. All right, let's get into the show with Josh. I am really excited to connect you guys with Mr. Joshua Bunch. And he just told me to call him Josh. We're going to call him Josh the rest of the show because it just makes things shorter. But Josh reached out to me. I think, was it on Instagram that you reached out first or was it email?
Instagram.
Yeah.
Instagram,
so Josh reached out on Instagram and just like, hey, I've got this really cool app I want to talk to you about. We hopped on the phone. And, you know, normally, guys, when I do a pre-interview for the show, I like to talk to people before we just come in and hop on to record so we know that what we're gonna talk about with y'all. But we got on the phone and that 30-minute pre-interview may have been over in like 5 minutes because it was immediately obvious. Like, this man has some incredible stuff we got to share. We already identified it. We were off the phone and we were already ready to record. So just a heads up about Josh. Josh is currently the chief marketing officer and the co-founder of an app that is just hitting the market. It's just going through the processes of developing right now. It's called Outro. And I'm going to let him talk a little bit more about that later. But he is also actively a student at New York University. He's working on his business degree. He's also double majoring in finance. He also is running track and playing basketball at NYU while he's doing these two things and being the CMO of this new company. And oh, by the way, he also does consulting at one of the large consulting firms, KPMG. This man is going to be leading this country someday. And I'm really excited to have him here. Hey, Josh, thanks for reaching out to me and thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this conversation, so I'm not even going to run my mouth. I'm going to hand it right over to you. Give the folks a little bit about your background, tell them about who you are, and let's just jump into this thing.
Yep. So I'm Josh. I'm 21. I'm about to be a junior at NYU Stern School of Business. I'm originally from Long Island, but right now I'm living in Union Square in the East Village. I've had pretty much a passion for entrepreneurship since I can remember. I mean, my dad is a social entrepreneur. He runs one of the largest domestic violence prevention organizations in the entire country. My mom has been in social entrepreneurship also for her entire career. So it's pretty much been in my blood since I was young that I would somehow incorporate social entrepreneurship with, my passion for technology and just my overall enthusiastic character. And so me and three other women, we created this company called Outro. We created this company called Outsmart. And through that company, which is actually a LLC, legally LLC, we created this app called Outro. And Outro is an app that allows users to rate and review bars and clubs based off of the criteria of safety, inclusivity, and fun. Essentially, the reason why we wanted to create this app was because we felt that people of color, women, and the LGBT community were always the victims when it came to going out, and a lot of times people had to compromise having fun with staying safe. So whether you knew or you or a friend knew that this bar was unsafe, or that it had a reputation for girls' drinks being spiked, or that it had a reputation for discriminating, or that it had a reputation for treating their patrons terribly because of either their skin tone, their sexuality, or their gender, we felt that this app, we wanted to mitigate those type of things because, one, my founder, the founder of the company, the CEO, her name was Kylie Leff. She's from Chicago. The reason why she came up with this idea was because one night, one of her friends got drugged at a bar. Then 2 nights later, her friend got drugged at that same bar. And so she came to us and pretty much started this idea of what can we do to mitigate something like this? What can we do to prevent it? What can we do to let people know? And so she came up with this idea. One thing led to another, and then we have Outro. So Outro is right now in the App Store. We have about 1,000 users, a little bit more than 1,000 users. 2 nights ago, we had our official beta launch event. The app has been out for about a month now. The app is in every single state across the country, and pretty much every single bar or club. If the bar or club is on Yelp, then it is on Outro. We have about 270 places that are rated, and about 300 or 400 active users that pretty much use the app on a pretty consistent basis.
That is incredible, man. And hearing a little bit more about the background to this and how prolific the app is across the nation. Do you guys kind of piggyback off of any technology that's out there, or did you go in and get information about all of these different bars and clubs across the nation separately? Because that sounds like that would be a huge undertaking.
Yeah, so essentially what the developers do, the people who developed our app, they do just that. They pretty much scraped all of Yelp and pretty much Google itself. So we use a platform called Squarespace, which has all the data. And then from Squarespace, they take the information from Google. And so with that, we can get all the information from all the bars. That's pretty much what most review companies that rate restaurants or so. And this app there's really no other app like this out right now. I mean, the closest thing that you could possibly think of is Yelp, but it's totally different because they rate restaurants, and their restaurants are rated strictly off of the quality of the food, not the safety of the space or the vibe or how inclusive you feel while you're in the space. So essentially we came up with this idea because we felt that, one, we couldn't believe that this idea didn't already exist, and two, we felt that it was really needed. And the app is not only great for women, LGBTQ, or people of color. I mean, anyone can use the app. If you're looking for, a good cocktail, there's a feature in the app that uses buzzwords. So let's say you're looking for a good cocktail, you can type that in as a buzzword, and then bars and clubs that are associated with good cocktails will come up. Say you're looking for a karaoke night on a Tuesday, type in karaoke in the search bar, bars and clubs associated with karaoke will come up. So you're looking for a sports bar, club come up, a dance club, buzzwords come up. I mean, or LGBTQ plus bar, that's a buzzword that'll come up. Or if you're looking for a sports bar in particular, like a team like the New York Giants, there are a lot of bars in the city that are specifically associated with teams. That bar will come up. So it's essentially really good for everyone. But what we made the app for, and our target segment is LGBTQ plus, people of color, and women. But the app is not limited to just those people.
Yeah. And so, and listening to that, my first thought is, there was a time in my life, maybe about 12 or 13 years ago, where I would have been going out looking to try to find the place where I can dance. There's pool tables. There's going to be lots of women, and it's going to be too loud to have a conversation, and we're just packed in and stepping on each other's shoes, right? But then now I'm in a situation where it's like, man, I just want to find a spot where I can chill, where they may be, a little bit of jazz or piano playing in the background. There's big lounge chairs. We can just sit down, have some cocktails, have a deep conversation with 5 or 6 friends together. Where's that spot? It sounds like this app can help me find those kind of places that fit my vibe based on wherever I am in life, right?
Very, very much so. Not only that, I mean, you could also look for bars based off of the type of music you want. You can look for bars based off the type of vibe. If you want a chill vibe, if you want it rowdy, if you want it quote unquote fratty, or if you want a bar that, you want to go play, billiard games on or play pool, you can find bars like that. That's exactly what the app does.
So that is awesome. Off of me though, cause that, it's nice. And one, I'm about to download this thing, but going back to the focus, the whole reason why the app was built in the first place. And I want to go back to the terminology you used up front. You talked about the fact that your dad and your mom are both in the world of social entrepreneurship. Now, I know what social entrepreneurship is, but talk a little bit about that aspect of entrepreneurship and how their passions kind of passed into you and what social entrepreneurship means to you and how you're living that in your life.
Yeah. So essentially social entrepreneurship is the idea that you're creating a business where you're looking for profit, but the main cause for your business isn't to make money, it's to make a change. That's pretty much what my definition of social entrepreneurship is and the way I live by it. My parents' definition is a bit different. My dad's definition is you're looking for change first, and then you're looking for profit, but if the profit doesn't come, that you're still trying to make that change. And both my parents, my dad runs a not-for-profit, so that just comes with the business. And since a young age, again, with my parents being always in the space of pretty much promoting a healthy manhood. I have three other siblings, 2 brothers and 1 sister. Pretty much promoting a healthy manhood and being very not afraid to share your emotions and not being afraid of terms that are typically negative, but being okay to be male and have emotions, and being okay to be male and care about other people, being okay to be a male and show affection to other males. That has always been something that's been instilled in me. Mm-hmm. And so when I came across when this app first got started, it wasn't very difficult for me to be in the spaces that, or be around the people that we're pretty much trying to help, like LGBTQ plus people and women, because I grew up, I always knew who I was as a person, and I always was very comfortable with myself, and I was never ever afraid to speak out because of the way my parents raised me, because I knew that a lot of times, whether it be, someone catcalling or saying something badly about a woman, a lot of times some guys will let that slide or be okay with it because it's part of the quote unquote culture. Mm-hmm. But me growing up, that wasn't a part of my life. So ever since I was young, this just idea of, creating a better space for all sexuality has been a pretty big thing.
That's awesome. And in that, understanding that, I want to ask a little bit of a deeper question as far as the extent, right? The extent of the problem, the extent of the issue that women have, that LGBTQ people have in going out and trying to just enjoy themselves and have fun and not have to worry about whether it be taken advantage of or being attacked or anything like that. You know, how, as you guys did your market research, you know, how big of a problem is this that we're facing, and what are the reasons, some of the reasons you think that maybe it hasn't been addressed until you guys just made this app?
Yeah, I think that one of the saddest parts about this was that there is not one female person that I know that goes out regularly that has not been in some way either sexually harassed or sexually assaulted at a bar or club or leaving a bar or club. And I think one of the biggest reasons for that is because bars and clubs aren't held accountable for the actions of the people that they have inside of bars and clubs, which is why we created this app, because we want people to know the bars and clubs that aren't good to go to because they either have terrible security, their cameras don't work, or they just don't care. So we can weed out the bad bars and clubs, or we can improve them. And I think, again, one of the biggest things is bars and clubs aren't held accountable. A lot of times people are blamed for, or bars and clubs should be blamed, I believe, as much as the people that perpetuate their actions, because they're letting these people in. They're allowing these things to be pretty consistent. I mean, there's a ton of bars and clubs in the city that are known for having, whether it be, you know, a terrible bouncers who just let anyone in, or people being super drunk and just doing whatever they want, or bartenders not caring about the drinks that are on the bar and not watching them or not being attentive. So I would say that was definitely one of the biggest things, and one of the reasons why this is such a huge problem.
And just as you were talking, I'm thinking it would be awesome to see this become kind of like Yelp for bars and clubs like that, because I mean that's that self-regulation. The market, you're creating a tool that allows the market to regulate the behaviors of these businesses, because at some point I can envision these club owners, these bar owners looking at their outro ratings, right? And then having meetings with their staff about how do we get these outro ratings up? How do we make sure that we're creating an environment that's inclusive and that is safe for people, because that's now affecting our money. I mean, it's an incredible vision, man. I love the idea. I can already see the impact that it can have. But what's going to need to happen is, you know, people need to download the app and start using it. Wink, wink to everybody out in the audience.
Exactly. The most effective way the app works is when people leave reviews or ratings, so that people can be aware of the places that they want to go. Yeah,
absolutely. So closing up this conversation about social entrepreneurship. For everybody out in the audience here, you know, we talk a lot about ownership on this show, creating your own platforms, creating your own assets that can then be used to help other people. To me, a huge part of what we have to do in the Black community is focus on entrepreneurship for social change, because we are in a position where if we focus on entrepreneurship just for the sake of making money, what ends up happening a lot of times in the Black community is that we isolate ourselves. We isolate ourselves from the community because there are a lot of people who need help. There's a lot of stuff that needs to change. And if we're only interested in making money, then a lot of times we don't end up making money. Or we have to abandon the community to make money, and we just kind of ignore the fact that this is a Black-owned business. We go out and market to everybody else, and then we don't really bring anything back to the community. So I think it's incredible to think about entrepreneurship from the social angle. I got a question for you, Josh. Have you read or are you familiar with a book called Lean Startups for Social Change?
No, I'm not familiar with it.
So, you know, there's obviously the books that were written by Eric Ries called The Lean Startup. So this guy, Michael Jalabter, actually wrote a book called Lean Startups for Social Change, and it basically takes the lean startup model that I'm sure you're learning about in school and that you guys probably have used in developing this product. And it applies that model to organizations and businesses that exist in the social sphere that are either nonprofits, not-for-profits, or for-profit businesses that are all about social change. So I read that book about 2 years ago. I've got it sitting right here in front of me. When you started talking, I went and pulled it off my bookshelf. Hey, when we get off the phone, I'm going to send it to you, man. We'll get off the
appreciate that. Please.
Yeah, and I'll get it out to you because it's a really effective book, and it will probably enhance a lot of the things that you're thinking about and that you guys are doing as you're building your business. So I would love to send that over to you.
But please, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I want to jump into the next segment of what we're talking about here, which is going to be kind of the key focus. So as we've been talking about outro, you're building a business from scratch with 3 other co-founders, and you're going through the process as young entrepreneurs of building networks, of getting venture capital, of going through the phases of funding and all of this that you're doing that happens in startups in the tech world. And so I wanted to spend the majority of our talk today with you just kind of teaching us what you guys have gone through with that process and how we do it, right? How you're doing it, how we do it, how somebody can pick this up and use it for their product. So I'm just, again, going to shut my mouth. I'm going to hand it over to you. Talk to us a little bit about the process you guys have been using in developing this business.
Yep. Okay, so just a quick introduction. When you start any app or business, you need money to get off the ground. In the case of an app, you need money for the development of the app. In our case, we need money for the legal aspects of the app. We have a team of 4 lawyers who pretty much help us with the language of the app or help us with just regular consultations, who help us get our patent, or just consultation the language of the app. We also need money for the upkeep of the app. We need money for marketing, and we need money for employees, such as sales staff for the app. And there are several places where if you have an app or any type of business where you can get this money. There's bootstrapping, which essentially means that someone or a group of people just decide to pay the app to get it going. And this is pretty much what we did for the beta of our app. So a beta is pretty much the prototype of the app. It's pretty much a phase in the app where you are looking to collect as much data from the users so you can improve the app for the full version, which usually comes either a couple of weeks or a couple of months later, depending on your funding. And so one of the other co-founders and COO of the app paid for the development of the app and all the other costs that came with it. And then there's bank loans, which you can also use to fund an app or business, which I haven't really heard of that much being done for an app, but I'm sure that people use that pretty often for businesses. And then there's also finding angel investors. So and there's a ton of websites for this. You can find on Google, just type in angel investor websites, and there's pretty much websites where people with a lot of money just go on and they want to invest in businesses. And typically a lot of social entrepreneurship businesses use angel investors because they can have a little more control over their business because it's a person rather than a company that's investing in them. And then there's a venture capital, which is typically the most effective and quickest way to grow your app and get the ball really rolling. So there are thousands and thousands of venture capital firms. There's a website called Crunchbase, which is just crunchbase.com, CRUNCHBASE, that'll pretty much show you all the venture capitals that pretty much exist or have existed, and it'll also show you the companies they've invested in and how much their fund has come up to. And so the way venture capital works is a venture capital will open up a fund. Pretty much a fund is a pool of money that the VC will use to invest. The firm gathers money from either individual investors, companies, or whoever else wants to put into the pot. The firm will raise a fixed amount of money for the fund. It's not unnormal for a typical venture capital to have a fund that's about $100 million to $200 million, but there are also funds that are about $1 million or $200,000. And then the VC, the venture capital, will then take that money from the fund and use it to invest. VC firms typically expect to on their return on their investment, they typically expect the company either go public, which pretty much means that the company sells shares on the stock exchange, which is not very typical of an app, but It does happen. I mean, you see it with Snapchat. Snapchat just IPO'd or is about to IPO. Or they get acquired by another company, which is something that happens pretty often. Or they just decide to sell the company to another person for management, or in another case. In either case, the cash flows from the sale of either the public stock or the acquisition or the sale of the VC firm places, and the proceeds that they get go back to the people that had originally invested into the fund. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And then so when the whole process is done, the goal, say if a company has a $100 million fund, when the whole process is done and they're done investing, the goal is to have made more than $100 million originally invested, and then the fund will then distribute that however much money will then distribute back to the investors based on the amount of money each one originally contributed. So VCs are there's a lot of VCs. I mean, a lot of companies that just have a surplus of money will just create a venture capital. For example, Hearst, it's a media company. I don't know if you heard of it, but they created a venture capital just because they had so much money. This company called 2 Sigma, which is a hedge fund, they just had so much money lying around. They decided, okay, let's just create a venture capital fund so we can make more money with our money and actually have it kind of active. And so there are many different types of venture capital. So there's seed venture capitals, which is pretty much a low-level financing, or it's pretty much when you have a new idea, nothing's developed yet, they pretty much give you money to make that idea a reality. And then there's startup, which is when new firms need funding for expenses related to either marketing or product development. So the company or app is already created, they just need money to keep it going. Mm-hmm. And then there's first round investing, which is manufacturing and early sales funding. So if a company needs to create more product or use it for sales or stuff like that. And then there's second round funding, which is pretty much used for operational capital, given to like early stage companies, which will help them sell products, help them market, pretty much for their internal expenses. And then there's third round funding, which is also known as like the mezzanine financing. This is for a company expanding a newly beneficial company. So if they're looking to buy a company, or if they already have a company that they need to pretty much help grow more. And then there's fourth round funding, which is proposes like the going public process, where they use money to help the company go public.
Okay, so there's a bunch of stuff to unpack there, and
yeah.
Give me a quick second. I am writing down notes.
Yep. In a short, essentially what VCs do, they use their own money and they use other people's or companies' money to invest in other companies to then hopefully get a return. Right. But a lot of times, I would say if a VC invests in 10 companies, maybe only 3 of them are successful. But they're hoping that with those 3 that they'll be extremely successful and they can make the money that they originally invested back from the other 10 companies and then some.
And so that's part of what I was going to ask about. When you're looking at venture capitalist firms, I'm going to guess that there are different firms that are going to be, more risk averse than others. There's going to be firms that just say, okay, let's invest in as many projects as we can and see what hits. Or there's going to be firms who are going to do a lot of vetting before they'll do an initial investment because they want to be more conservative. So how do you navigate that as an entrepreneur, as a team of founders of trying to find the right venture capital firm to fund your project? I would assume that there's going to be some that want to be more hands-on. They want to have more updates with what's going on with their money, as opposed to others that are a little bit more kind of freewheeling. So how do you navigate that? How do you figure out who's who and who you want to connect with and who you kind of want to stay away from?
So the good thing with venture capital is they just don't give money away. So you know that if they're giving money to you, they see a real future in you. They see you as becoming successful, because every time a venture capital gives money, part of the business is you have to assume that company is going to do well. That's just a part of the business. So it's not like, they're just giving you money as like, here, take this. Like, you did the presentation, you went through all this process, we'll just give you money. No, like, they actually are going to give you money, and then they also give you more than just money. They give you resources. There's something called an accelerator, which a lot of app companies do, which essentially they don't give you money, but they'll give you Workspace, they'll give you resources, they'll help you market the app, and then they'll take a stake of the company based off that, but they won't give you directly money. And so one of the biggest things I would say when it comes to either deciding what venture capital to go to or deciding what type of venture capital you want is typically for an app like ours, we have been searching for either venture capitals that typically invest in social kind of stuff because they can have a bit more of an understanding of, sometimes, some venture capitals may want you to do something because it'll make more money, but at the same time, it'll also compromise your original values. And that's something that we don't want to do because we believe that the values that we have within the app need to stay the way they are, no matter how much potential money we can make or how much money we can possibly lose with that.
Okay.
So we typically look for that type of venture capital because we want it to be pretty fluid in our communication, and we want them to know that, the app is still ours and we're going to do it the way we want, and you can choose to give us the money, but just know that this is going to be something that's going to be pretty relevant. And then, the biggest thing with that is that venture capitals typically don't try to compromise any management that's going on. If the management is bad, venture capitals won't give you money. They do a really good job of vetting management because that's one of the most important things because they say, okay, if things are going bad, the one thing that will help this app get back on the ground or get back off the ground is going to be the management and how they handle situations. So that's definitely a huge part of venture capital vetting. The typical process is what you do is you either – there's never really an application online or anything. It's honestly just, networking and, either going online and finding an email at a venture capital or asking a friend who went through the process of getting the email and pretty much just cold emailing people and just say, hey, I have this idea, or hey, I have this app in the App Store, check it out. I'm so-and-so and this is my company. We would love to pitch to you, that kind of stuff. And that's a lot of times how venture capitals come up. Not very often do venture capitals actually come to you because, there are millions and millions of apps out there on the App Store that are doing fairly well that just don't have funding. And it would just be impossible for a venture capital to find something that they felt was interesting. So that's definitely a big thing.
Okay. So a little bit of what I heard there, your values have to line up. It's got to be a firm that either the values line up or they respect the values that your company has, which I think is great.
Yes.
And then the other thing that I wanted to know, you're talking about going through the process of getting seed money to getting startup money, first round, second round, third round, fourth round. At every point in this process. Like you said, that money's not free. They're not giving it away. They're taking a stake in the company for that. But it's expected that at every stage in the process, the money that you get is going to help you build more value so that the next time you have another round of funding, the asset that you guys are building is worth quite a bit more than it was the last time. And so the amount of money that you need to continue going forward may be equivalent to a lower number of shares in the company than if somebody had gotten in at an earlier point. Talk a little bit about that. When you talk about managing it, what's the job of management as they go through that process to build value for that new company?
Yeah. So you made a good point. Actually, the more data you collect in your app, specifically our app, because we collect a lot of data. Pretty much whenever we hit 100 more users, our valuation goes up, I would say a couple $1,000 because that's just the way that the valuation calculations have worked. So the more data you have, the more money you're worth, and then the more money invested, the more money you're worth. And so what was your question one more time? Just the management and the process? And
just talking about, as you're going through as a management team, as a founding team, of going from the point of, seed money to startup money to building the business to all those things and going through these different rounds of funding. Because not all companies go through all those rounds. Some of them, stop taking funding. But, the goal, of course, being to continually build value and make the investment more valuable tomorrow than it was today, make it a more attractive bid for other investors later on down the line, but also creating that value from the standpoint of, making investors look and say, I need to get in this thing early. They're well managed. They're building value every day. I need to get into it early, because if I throw my $500,000 in here, in the next round or 2 rounds from now, that's only going to buy me a minimal stake where I could have gotten a large stake in the company early. So how does a management team, what is the real goal of a management team, or what should they be doing in order to build that value, to make that that company grow?
I would say one of the biggest goals of a management team is to receive feedback from users, especially during the beta, because you want to know what users are liking, what users aren't liking, what works well in the app, what isn't working in the app. And so once you create your full version, it's as polished of an app as it possibly can be. And then another pretty big thing is, it might sound cliche, but just never giving up and never. Cause sometimes, in any business, when you're just getting off the ground, you think to yourself, man, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if this is going to do well. I feel like anyone who started a business has had that thought at one point or another. You have this idea that maybe I shouldn't be doing this. This is too difficult. This type of stuff. And on the management side, staying consistent and continually working hard, and also staying innovative and just thinking of things that can make the app different and that separates the app from any other app that is out. To be honest, anyone can replicate this app, Outro. Anyone can replicate it. You can find developers who can create the app to make it look just like this, just like that. But what is very special about us is, and I give a lot of credit to our creative design officer, is she has continued to be able to create either art or little subtle things, or changing up the logo to make the app look user-friendly. And that's one of the biggest things, is having a user-friendly app, because no matter how good an app is, if you don't feel comfortable using it, you're not going to use it. That's just the way it is. That's why we have a nice pink color, and then the interface is very nice. The map comes up very smoothly. When you click on a bar, the color is very light to the eyes. So that's definitely a huge thing with management. And then I would say another big thing is, having people that are very responsible for their roles, and having people that play their roles well, and then who know what other people's roles are and what they can do to help those other people. I'm the CMO, so I'm in charge of marketing and pretty much a lot of the business side. But then our CEO is someone who, we get emails every day of our daily tasks. We get emails every day on what we need to do for the next coming weeks. We get emails every day on how our app is doing and what we can do better and what the next stages are. And we're always creating these new ideas on what the full version of the app should look like, and that kind of stuff. So that all stuff is super important when it comes to the management side.
That's awesome. And with that, all of that data and communication that's flowing back and forth between your management team, all the data you're capturing from the users, all the feedback you're capturing and applying from the users, all of that demonstrates good management to potential investors. Yep. You're an engaged founding team who cares about what you do. You know how to do your specific roles, and you're tapped into your users. Those all sound like the kinds of things that an investor would look and say, this is a low risk. This is a low risk and high potential reward. So
exactly.
Love it.
And we know the app very well. We know all the features that comes with it. We know all the buzzwords that you can do. We know all the different types of ratings that you can give. We know the app like the back of our hands.
I love it. And so another part of what we talked about, communicating about on this show, is we just talked about the venture capitalist process, but we also talked about networking and the importance of building networks, opening up those channels, and finding, whether it be partners or capitalists or designers or developers or whoever it is, just that whole art of networking. So I'll hand it back over to you. Just talk to us about networking as a young entrepreneur, as a 21-year-old student, consultant, and athlete who is also the CMO of a company. You know,
Yeah.
how do you do it, man? How do you build these relationships?
I think that one of the biggest parts of networking is actually, before I get to that, whenever I go somewhere, I try to talk to as many people as possible because you never know who you're going to run into. I mean, I would say that I wouldn't be where I am today at 21 years old without. I mean, I have as many adult friends as I do people my age. I mean, that's the significance of what networking can do for your life. And I think that one of the biggest things is people are afraid, you know, oh, like maybe I'm kissing up or maybe I'm just being fake or something like that. But no, it's not that at all. You're not being fake. You're just trying to benefit yourself, and the reason why you're networking with them is because you think that you can have a benefit to them. I mean, for example, there have been plenty of times where my friends have felt like, oh, they didn't want to network with someone for a job they were applying for because they felt like, oh, they were just being a kiss up. But no, you're going to be just as much of an asset to that company as they're going to be an asset to you. And I think one of the big parts of networking is confidence and expanding your network and always having, you know, a business card on you. I always have a business card on me, whether it's my algebra business card, my school business card, or I always give out my emails to everyone. I try to cold email as many people as I can. As I said before, when it comes to venture capital, cold emailing and pretty much going to different types of conferences, whether it's youth entrepreneurship conferences or going to different banks for their diversity days, pretty much putting yourself out there and putting yourself in situations where you can meet as many people as possible is going to give you the best benefit. Things aren't going to come to you. You have to go to them. I can't stress enough how many times I've signed up for all different free conventions, whether it be with a youth entrepreneurship convention, or whether it be at JP Morgan, or whether it be at my school, or whether a company is coming to my school to talk, and I just go. I just try to talk to as many people I can because I never know when I'm going to need them in the future.
Okay, I love it. I love it. So that mindset, that process that you use, that philosophy that you have, how did that help you as the chief marketing officer for Outro? How did that help you as you guys have been going through the process of trying to build this business? How did you and your networking kind of help you guys move along this path?
Yeah, so I have a couple friends who I actually met either at a convention or at school, just at an entrepreneurship event that had actually had their own apps and actually sold their own apps, or still have the app, and the app is doing very well. So we definitely go to them for a lot of consultation and just getting advice and stuff like that. I mean, I just reached out to one of my friends before who just sold his app about 3 months ago and just said, you know, how did you monetize? How did you market? How did you decide, you know, what people to bring in to do a focus group with, what people to not bring in? What type of questions did you ask in regards to the app and how you can make it better? I mean, that type of stuff is really important, and just asking the right questions is also very important.
Okay. I love it. I love it, man. So, everything that you shared about venture capitalism and going through that process is something we have not had on this show before. It was massively informational, and it's going to be helpful for everybody out on the show. Is there anything else in the main topics that we talked about that you want to just share with us or go over before we move into the next segment?
I would just say, I mean, like I said, I think just doing your if anyone that's trying to start a business, I think just doing your research and going on Google and just like looking up stuff and just looking up different venture capitals and the process and like that. I mean, you can never be too educated on this type of stuff. I think that's really important. Golden.
All right, so we're gonna roll into the final component of the show, and I always start that off by asking this question, and I feel like you're gonna have a great answer for us because you've got a lot going on right now. What is the biggest challenge that you have ever faced, and how did you overcome it, or what did you learn from it?
I would say the biggest challenge I have ever faced was taking myself seriously. I think that all the things I'm doing, sometimes I'm like, well, do I need to be doing this? I mean, I'm only 21. I have more time. Maybe I'm not good enough to be doing this. Maybe I'm too young to be doing this. Maybe I'm too young to be having that. Maybe I'm too young to be a part of a company. Doing that kind of stuff, and just having that mindset is definitely like one of the biggest challenges I face, because a lot of times I see that my friends aren't doing the same stuff as I am, and even though they're very, very active, whether it be in the community or in their career, they're not doing the same stuff as I am, because it's typically not what a 20-year-old person in college would do. I mean, I don't really have much free time. I don't really go out that much because I have a million other things going on. I would say that was definitely the biggest challenge, is just being able to look at myself and say, okay, like, I'm able to do this. I can do this no matter my age. I'm able to pretty much do whatever I want to do and pursue what I want to pursue. And me being in school or me playing a sport or me doing anything shouldn't stop me from doing that. And I would say one of the biggest things that helped me overcome that was definitely just going to people and just getting advice, and going to older people who have had experiences like mine, even if it wasn't at my same age, but who have started businesses, or who are looking to start businesses, or my friends who have started businesses. That definitely helped me overcome it. And just realizing that what I'm doing is what I want to do, and I really love it. And just because I don't have much of a life as a 21-year-old doesn't mean that, I'm not living.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think that imposter syndrome, it's not just being young and saying I'm doing things that other people my age aren't doing. Is this really me? Can I really do this?
Exactly.
That challenges all of us. I mean, I'm still sitting here, right? I'm 36 years old. I've got a career. I've got this podcast. I'm coaching people, and at every step of the way, I'm like, do you really know what you're talking about? Like, do you just sound like you're making a whole bunch of crazy stuff up? Should you really be talking to people on this show about this and that? You don't know what you're talking about. But it's our own subconscious and self-conscious telling us that, well, in order to do this, what I really need behind me is 3 or 4 different letters behind my name. That way people will listen. Yes. No, people listen when they hear competence. When they hear somebody who's competent, who knows what they're talking about, who's done it. That's what they listen for. They don't listen for the letters behind your name. That comes later. So, and you also said, go ahead.
Someone who has a real passion for what they're doing is what really sticks with people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, you definitely got that. You said something. One of the first things you said was, the challenge is taking yourself seriously, and I find that interesting because, for me, my challenge is not taking myself too seriously. The way that I see my role in life right now is, I'm surrounded, I'm in a corporate environment, been in the corporate world for a long time. I'm surrounded by people who try so hard to be taken seriously. Mm-hmm. I want people to take me seriously. I want people to see me as this, to see me as that. And for me, it's the exact opposite. I am going to have as much fun as I can. I'm going to be as relaxed as I can, because I'm not going to take myself seriously. I'm just going to have fun and be the smartest person in the room a lot of times, and you're going to take me seriously. But I don't have to force you to see the value in me. I'm just going to have fun, and when I open my mouth and you hear what I say, you'll say, oh, that dude, I guess he does know what he's talking about.
Exactly.
And it's all good.
Especially being a black man in the corporate world.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because we a lot of times fall into that thing of, well, I've got to dress nicer than everybody. I've got to talk more properly than everybody. I've got to make sure that what I say is authoritative and this and the other. And there's a lot behind there. There's a lot of real history behind why we had to do that, and a lot of times still have to do that to kind of prove our bona fides. But at least for me, I just say, you know what? I am going to have fun. And I know what I'm talking about. I know all of the things that are behind me, my experience, my certifications, everything that goes with it. If you don't want to listen to me, then you're just going to make bad decisions, right? But I'm a consultant. Exactly. I will give you the advice. You can take it or leave it. When you don't take it and bad things happen later on, maybe you'll listen then. But we're good. Yeah, I love it, man. So you may find later on down the line that you kind of do that switch and you get to a point where you're just like, you know what? All right, I've proven it. I trust myself. Now I don't have to worry about being taken seriously. I'm just going to have fun with this because there's nobody else doing things at the level I'm doing it. And I can already tell you're there. later on down the line, you're going to really, that confidence will be there of, you know what, I don't have nothing to prove to myself. I know I got this. And then you're just going to enjoy it, man. And I'm telling you from experience, once you get to that point where it's just fun helping people because you know you got the answers to their questions and it's not even any sweat, that's the best part of life. It's so fun.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, you're on the way, man. You're already there. It's just the feeling of that is going to come later.
Thank you.
The next question I want to ask is tools. I rely on a lot of tools to help me juggle the different jobs that I have and the coaching and the podcast and the everything that's on my schedule, all these other things, right? We get inundated with all of this work that has to be done. And there are just certain tools that just save us time and energy that would probably be good for other folks. So, for you, what are one or two of the most important tools that you use regularly that kind of help you keep this stuff organized, save you time and energy, and might help some folks out in the audience?
Yeah, I would say that one of the biggest things definitely is obviously Google Calendars. I mean, a lot of people use it, but a lot of people don't use it for, whether it's going to pick up laundry or you have a meeting with a CEO. I mean, Google Calendars has definitely been one of the biggest helps for me because I can also connect it to my iPhone reminders, which will pop up right on my screen when I wake up or something like that. That definitely has helped me a lot. And then I would also say just the mindset of I'm going to get this done when I'm assigned it or when I find out that I have to get it done, because there have been countless number of times when I was younger when I would be like, I have time, I can just put it off. And then when I finally put it off, something else pops up that I have to get done in the same time frame, and then it's impossible to manage it too. And I would say one of the most important things that I've learned, even though I'm super young, one of the most important things that I've learned already is when you are given something or you have a task to do it when you are given it, or to even start it when you are given that task. That's definitely one of the biggest things.
Love it. I love it. Man, you are giving us this wisdom today. I love it. Everybody needs it. So I'll follow up. Next question I have is, we've been talking about Outro, and we've been talking about the fact that you guys are over 1,000 users now and still growing. What's coming up next for Outro? What can the audience do to help you help you guys grow this platform?
I would say the number one thing the audience can do is if you have any advice at all on, whether it be like what we should add feature to the app or if we should, do anything with the app, or even when it comes to marketing, anything or any type of business you think we should use or anything, I would really appreciate that. That would be great. I mean, I'd take everything seriously. And then the next thing for us would be, we're pretty much now just trying to raise money. We're looking to raise close to $1.5 million to complete our full version, and then that'll also go into marketing the app and then partnerships with bars and clubs. That's pretty much the next thing for Outro. That's pretty much the next steps.
Golden. I love it. And so where can people find the app? And also, where can people find you if they have questions directly for you or they want to help and support?
Yeah. So you can find the app on the App Store under the name Outro, O-U-T-R-O, Outro, O-U-T-R-O. It should be the first app that comes up. It's the pink moon as a logo. And then you can reach me either at Josh, J-O-S-H, at goingoutro.com or JB5817 at Stern, STERN .NYU.edu. So it's JB5817 at Stern.NYU.edu. Or you can connect with me on LinkedIn, just Josh Bunch. I should be the person that comes up as an NYU student working at KPMG.
Awesome. I love it. That is great. So I'm just letting you know right now, when we get off of the, what is this thing we're on? Phone, that I forget words sometimes. I'm going to go and I'm going to download Outro on my iPod, because I've got an Android phone, and you guys high-sided the Android, but and we didn't even talk about that. So one of the things we talked about in the pre-interview, everybody, was the reasons why startups go to certain platforms. So Josh is saying this is on the App Store, so that is for Apple. It is not available for us Android users. But talk a little bit about that. As an app developer, what goes into the decisions of, do we go Android first? Do we go Apple first? Like, how do you make those decisions, and why?
So one of the reasons why we chose iOS, which iOS has a specific code that's different than Android. So the coding language that you use for iOS is called SwiftX. SwiftX is used only for iOS, and it's a pretty difficult language. It's not difficult, but from what I've been told, it's not very easy. It's not like Python or Java. It's a pretty difficult language to use, and it's specifically only for iOS development, mobile apps. And so we decided to use that because we figured that our biggest market is going to be people between the ages of 18 and 32, and most people between the ages of 18 and 32 in the United States have iPhones. And then we could have developed a whole another app for Android, but that would have been a whole other cost, and that's not money that we're willing to spend right now. But I promise you, it'll eventually be on Android, hopefully sooner than later.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna pontificate here for a quick second for the audience, talking about why decisions are made and things like this. When you look at a product like Outro, right, and it is 100% dependent on people using it, people liking it, and people telling other people about it in order for it to be successful. How much do you want to invest in building that for multiple platforms when you can build it for a platform where most of the people are, right? And so by going Apple, and most app developers do this, by going Apple first, you go to where you can get the deepest market saturation for your product early, and you get people using it. Apple users tend to be, they're more hip, they're more trendy, they're the ones who are setting trends, and so you're going after the part of the market who's going to be your early adopters. The early adopters are the ones who set the tone for everybody else in the market. And so you go through, you develop your app on one platform, you save that money, and then you get market saturation. And eventually you get to a point where not only are you adding value for your product, but you get to the point where people on the Android side are saying, where is it for us? We want this too. We need this too. And so that demand signal starts growing. And as you have that demand signal growing, you can see the point where it's going to be valuable to then go and invest in building on that second platform. But a lot of folks who kind of don't think through the market side of this first, they just say, well, we want to reach everybody. We want to make it available for everybody. And you end up overextending yourself with whatever funds you have available, trying to build and merge two platforms so that they look and act the exact same on both sides. That's two sets of development. That's two sets of testing. That's two sets of bug fixes. It's constant. And you can go broke as a company trying to do all of that before you've ever proven that there's a market who's willing to support and pay for your product out there. So it's just a smart move.
If it's successful on the iPhone, then it'll be successful on the Android.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had talked about having that conversation. I nerd out on things like that. I love the marketing aspect of, how do I effectively go after the right people and get my product in their hands, make them love it to the point where they're now growing my product for me. They're growing my market base for me. They're telling other people about it, and they're begging me for it. So I love that. All right. So last thing before we get out of here, I got to ask you the same. The last question we always ask folks who come on Buy Black, Build a New Black Wall Street, and that is, what is your number one piece of advice for our Buy Black community as a whole?
My number one piece of advice for the Buy Black community, I would say that if you have an idea, no matter how outrageous you think it is, if you are passionate about it, pursue it. That is my number one thing. Don't think that, because no one else will like it, No one else is going to use it. No one else is going to buy it. If you have an idea, pursue it. That's the number one thing, because if our founder didn't have this idea and didn't want to pursue this, no matter how outrageous she thought it was, no matter how expensive she thought it would be, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I wouldn't be where I am today. I mean, it's an incredible thing, having consistency and actually believing in something so much that you don't pay attention to what anyone says about it. And then on top of that, no matter what people say, if you have a passion about it and if you believe it's going to do well, then don't let other people affect your opinion on your own product. Because I've gotten a lot of feedback, especially because of the field that it's in, and me being a male, one, and two, me being a black male. I've gotten a lot of pushback on, why am I involved with the app? What do I know about, a woman's experience or LGBTQ experience when it comes to going out? But I'm passionate about this, and I believe it's really going to make a change, so I don't really care what people say.
Love it. I don't curse on this show, but I was about to. But that is darn right. That is darn right, sir. That's powerful, and it is true. We, as black males, and we do it to ourselves. We do it to our peers,
Yep.
right? Try to tell each other
so.
what it really means to be a man, what it really means to be a black man. And if you care about anybody who's not a African American heterosexual male and their well-being,
it's an issue. Yep.
Then you got a problem. So wait.
Exactly.
I have empathy, so that makes me less of a man?
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Crazy. Yeah, my dad calls it the man box. When you have issues with men who show emotion or who have empathy, you're stuck in the man box. That's what my dad calls it.
That's awesome. You know what? I would love to meet your dad one day. He sounds like an incredible man.
Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing everything today. Thank you for sharing that last piece of advice. And I love what you're doing. I love the fact that that your passion is for people, and that you're being an example for us as black men. That's one big thing that I've talked about on the show a few times. We as black men, no, I haven't talked about it here. I've talked about it on other shows that I've been featured on. But we as black men, we have to start self-policing on this toxic masculinity that is so pervasive in our community specifically. We're hamstringing ourselves. We're hurting hurting the women in our community. We're hurting the LGBTQ community within the black community and elsewhere. We are so stuck on the man box that we have to fit in that we're not able to grow. It's like putting a killer whale inside of a small fish tank. You're not able to flourish and thrive because you're putting these constraints on yourself.
It's stressful on yourself. That's why men don't live as long as women do.
Yeah. We've got to get over it, and we gotta learn to have that empathy and love for everybody else, and then put our energy into loving and taking care of and supporting the other members of this community just as if they were ourselves, because we all should be looking to each other for leadership, guidance, and support. It doesn't just fall on the backs of the heterosexual black male, and we don't just exist to perpetuate ourselves. So I love that you're an example out here showing it's what it looks like. It's what it looks like when a black man goes out and says, I love people, I want to support people. And I love the fact that you reached out to come on the show, man. It's just been an incredible experience.
Thank you so much.
Everybody out there, this is it. This is episode number 47 of Buy Black. You guys were here for it. And this will be out there for eternity. You guys will be able to come back and listen again and again and again to learn about venture capitalism, networking, and how to do some real social entrepreneurship. But that is it for our show today. We are out of here. We'll catch you next week.